Hello everyone, welcome back to Factorio C Block. I'm Bobbin, you're watching episode 23, and we have lots of robots now. We're going to get to see in a minute what's been done with the science. Let's talk about the research that got done first. The research that got done between episodes was sulfur processing 3, which I was sort of looking forward to using for oil. I'm a little less inclined to at this point, but we'll see. Battle equipment enhancements, which is the military science. Sniper turrets, sniper turret damage upgrade 1 and 2. Worker robot speed, you may notice that these robots are moving a little faster than the default speed. Bullet damage 3 and 4. Ore processing 2, advanced iron smelting 3, and advanced tin smelting 3. Those last three items, the ore processing and the advanced smelting on tin and iron, were put in place to specifically address some material shortfalls that I've been having as a result of starting the blue science. Unfortunately, I started to have various bottlenecks emerge on materials once I started using them, rather than just letting them sit on lines. And aluminum was the first, and I did some work to fix it, and then I was short on silicon, and I did some work to fix it, and now I'm short on tin. We're going to do something to fix it. At some point, though, I'm just going to have to decide to be happy with whatever bottleneck I've got, because that's just how bottlenecks work in this game. You correct one, and then it shifts to somewhere else. Let's start by looking where the robots are getting built, because nothing has changed in here since the end of the last episode, except you'll notice that there are no robots flying around making robots right now. The reason for that is not because things have been shut off, but because I did a little bit of a trick with this inserter right here. I wired it up to the RoboPort, and if we look at the RoboPort, total logistics bots is reported on Y, and I have told it to only enable this inserter if Y is less than 200. So anytime there are at least 200 robots active in this building, it stops operating, which is fine. That's what I wanted, because I didn't want them to go and just suck down materials, making more and more robots, even after there was no more space in the RoboPort for them. When I need some robots, I can come here and grab some out, and they will commence replicating more. The rate at which they're producing the robots is actually quite acceptable at this point. By the end of the last episode, this room had actually produced a total of 81 robots, and the only reason it stopped was because it ran out of material. We no longer have that sort of material situation occurring because of what you just saw outside. Out here, I have pulled most of the materials that are on the bus over into chests that allowed the robots to go and pull stuff off of the bus effectively and put it into wherever it's needed. Okay, we got robots very busy in here. I do want to show one thing here. This item right here is a charge station. Yeah, a large robot charging point. There are a few of these in use right now, and the reason it's here is because it's a lot better, from what I can tell, for managing the traffic on the robots to have this sort of charging point near where there's a lot of activity. The RoboPort is way up here, and I certainly don't want robots going up there and charging at that point. The charging station actually has 9 charging points as well, whereas the RoboPort only has 4. So we can charge a lot more robots with this, and it keeps them from having to go back all the way up to the RoboPort and then come back. On the subject of enhancing our robots, I did get the movement speed on them. Worker Robot Speed 1. The next advancement I want for the robots is actually the capacity one. This one right here. Worker Robot Cargo Size 1, because I would like to have them able to carry more than one item at a time. This will almost double the effectiveness of the robots to complete this research. Okay, so these robots are busy delivering stuff to this building. There was a problem in that for a long time it was out of green circuits. So before the episode, I went ahead and sort of cheated and backlogged some green circuits so that you'd have something to see here, because otherwise all these robots would have been still. That would also be true of what's going on in this building. Let's run in and take a peek. So we have a massive swarm of robots here. I think there are about 150 of them total in this building that are running around servicing all these machines. This is the same as the blue science pack production that I finished in the last episode, but I have extended it quite a bit, and I've made it to where it's capable of making a lot more than it was. It's all kind of ratioed up properly, and it's been made into little modules that can be stamped down in using a blueprint to go and make a more robot-friendly large setup for these. So that's sort of what's going on. At the moment, I don't actually have all of these capable of functioning. I'm not drawing enough materials to make as many blue science as this is capable of making by any means, but it is a start. One of the researches that I did get between episodes, I already mentioned it, it was the military science. Here's where I'm producing military science. It's actually a very similar sort of setup. The way that ratios work is a little different on these. The blue science has a little bit of a complication in that it requires fluids and such, but the ratios on it are very simple. On the military science, the ratios are pretty crazy, and I have not really attempted to do that much with them specifically. This is making more than enough military science kits at the moment. But the ratios are really bad on these machines, but at least there are no fluids to deal with. So there's that. Some of these machines are also quite slow. This one takes only 1 second, but you got to produce like 7 of these things for this, and this one takes 9 seconds. So 7 to 9 ratio, that's not something I want to work with too much. So I will probably just estimate it when I actually set up a larger production facility for those. What you're looking at now is an experimental robot-based setup for oil production. I've run it a little bit. It's currently produced 97 barrels of oil, it looks like, and 28 barrels of gas and 18 barrels of hydrofluoric acid. It's not complete, and so it isn't doing everything. There's not going to be enough room in this building to complete it. And honestly, when it is complete, I don't think it's going to produce oil on a large enough scale to be all that useful. I will probably go ahead and complete it. I have some sort of ideas for how to complete this, and I think it's going to be a worthwhile experiment to see if we can get decent oil production using this recipe that does air filtering, the lime air filtering. But I don't think it's going to be productive enough over the long run, and I don't think it's going to be necessary over the long run. I think the way to go for petrochemicals in this mod pack, unless there's some specialty one that I can't get that way, it's going to be synthesis gas, and that is going to be a material that I research pretty soon. However, I'm going to use the recursion feature. I'm going to finish this, and I'm going to use the recursion feature of Factorissimo that lets you put a building inside a building, just like this one right here. It's empty right now. To go and complete a fairly decent petroleum setup that produces probably some rubber and the chemical laser flash fuel, and it's probably going to be fueled by excess fuel oil. And I'm going to see if I can get it to balance and work out and actually produce some decent amount of these products without causing all sorts of other problems. We'll see. This is really just experimental though, and I don't think this is going to be where petrochemicals are going to go. Really, Angel's Petrochemicals kind of lends itself to mass production on a very large scale. Doing it on a small scale it just seems not to be entirely practical. You have to way overbuild on the machines in order to get what you need. So we are in the waste processing building looking at some production that I have situated in this building for the time being. I don't know if this is where I want to keep it, but it was the good place at the moment because it needs access to geodes. This is part of the solution that I put in place for fixing aluminum production and for fixing silicon production so that I could get more glass in, because I was short on aluminum and then I was short on glass. And my solution to that was to go ahead and use crystal catalysts to use the catalyst recipe for those items. Let's take a quick look here at aluminum. If we look at aluminum ore, there are a whole bunch of different recipes for producing it. This one is sorting of givelite chunks. Here is sorting of rubite chunks. We're actually doing both of those, I think. This one is the crystal catalyst one, and it takes givelite and rubite, 2 of each, and 1 crystal catalyst, which is what we're making here, and produces 4 aluminum ore. There is a similar recipe for silicon, and we're using that one too. I'm not going to go over that one. It's just, the only difference is that it uses slightly different chunks. Looking at this apparatus, what's really going on here is very straightforward and similar to what we've done before. We've got sulfuric acid being produced, and we've got geodes being slurried. The difference is this filter is, instead of making mineral sludge, it's making something called crystal seedling, and the crystal seedling is going into a chemical plant and becoming crystal catalyst. Let's look at the other piece of this. So here's the other side of it. This is where the aluminum is being produced. I've got rubite and I've got givolite coming in here. It's going into hydro plants. This is the same place, this is the same building, incidentally, where I was producing the rubite chunk filtering. So this building was already producing aluminum. Now it's producing more. That's going into this ore sorter. It's got the recipe set. Occasionally, it looks like I'm a little low on crystal catalyst at the moment, but occasionally it'll get a catalyst in here, and when that happens, it will spit out 4 aluminum ore. The supplemental aluminum from this process is actually working fairly well for catching me up. I anticipate more shortfalls in the future, but aluminum is not the bottleneck right now. So I said aluminum wasn't the bottleneck right now. You might be wondering, well, what is the bottleneck right now? And the answer is it's tin. I don't have any tin coming in. I do have, it looks like I have very little copper coming in as well, but there's some backlog on it, so it's not really a problem. What I'm going to do with tin in the short term is I'm not going to use catalyst. I may eventually, but I'm not going to use catalyst at the moment. It uses a different catalyst. Instead of the crystal one, it uses the mineral catalyst, and I don't have production set up for that. Instead, I'm going to use a different approach, which is I'm going to go ahead and use the ore processing side of it to increase the yield on the ore that's coming through. So I've set up a new building for that. Let's go in there and set that up. So I'm in a new empty building that is off at the end of the row where we're making ingots. Our goal here is to make 10 ingots more efficiently than we were making them before. Before we were just taking and smelting the tin ore directly, and that gives 1 ingot per ore. The recipe that I want to use this time is the one that uses, well, we're going to start with tin ore. We're going to put 4 tin ore in, and we're going to get 2 processed tin. Processed tin is going to give us 10 pellets at a 3:4 ratio, so it looks like if we put, let's say we doubled this one. No, let's not double it. Oh, okay, if we go 50% more for this, 6 tin ore equals 3 processed tin. And then on the pellets, 6 or 3 processed tin gives us 4 tin pellets. So 6 tin ore gives us 4 tin pellets. 4 tin pellets will smelt into basically 12 tin ingots. And that is an efficiency improvement. I think it almost sounds like it's not, but I'm pretty sure it is, and I just miscalculated the math. We're going to set it up anyway and hope that it's an efficiency improvement. I'm fairly certain it is. At least it's no worse. Okay, so what do we need to do? Well, we need to process our ore, and that happens in an ore processing machine, which is this machine right here. And we are going to produce processed tin. Then the processed tin is going to go into a pelleting machine, and we're going to make 10 pellets. And then the 10 pellets are going to be smelted in a blast furnace, just like, where is that? Here we go. And it's going to require 2 carbon. It's going to take 8 tin pellets, and it's going to produce 24 tin ingots. So we're going to get 3 tin ingots out of each tin pellet. And I think, you know, I'm gonna actually calculate that up because I want to know for sure. I think it's about a 50% improvement in yield. Okay, I've computed it up, and unless I've made a mistake somewhere, it's actually 100% improvement in yield. So we're going to get that much more tin out of our ingots, and that's going to be a good thing. So let's run our carbon over here because we are going to need some. And this building may get used for more than one ore because tin is fairly simple to process. So let's run carbon down that way and leave this out of the way a little bit. And we'll go ahead and clear carbon out of my inventory. And let's run fuel up to this machine. We've got to have that. Okay, so we're getting fuel and carbon now. Now I just need to get all of the tin run through the process here. And tin is a simple one to process. There are much more complicated ones that I probably will just live with shortages on. Gold processing, do I really want to set that up? I'll have to be fairly desperate for gold because the top tier gold processing involves all sorts of stuff. Okay, so we're busily producing tin ore, and we're going to put that in there, and we're producing pellets, and now we're going to run the pellets into the smelting machine, and it's already started melting up a whole bunch of ingots for us, I hope. So let's run that out the back door here. And I believe I've already set up the production line for it. Let's go back and take a look. So the tin's going out the back door here, and it's going up, and I believe it's going on to its appropriate place on the belt. Let's see. Here's some tin coming by from a previous iteration. And I see tin coming up. There it is. So we're getting more tin on here, and hopefully it will. Here it's being used for pipes. It's being used for solder somewhere right here. Hopefully it will make its way around and we'll start getting more tin plates in, and that will solve our problems. As you can see from the number of relatively empty belts here, tin is not the only thing in short supply. It looks like we are actually critically short on copper at the moment, so I'm probably going to set something similar up for copper very soon. Copper probably is about the same process. Let's take a look. Copper. No, copper is a much more complicated process. If we want to do copper, we're going to have to make copper anodes, which come from copper pellets and oxygen. And then the copper anodes are treated in a chemical furnace with sulfuric acid. That sounds more complicated than what I want to do. So I'm probably not going to do copper that way. I will likely resort to some other method to improve copper if I need to. One method would actually just be to go ahead and start producing some stearite. For the most part, I haven't produced any stearite since the beginning of the game. I have been getting most of my copper from sapphirite, so it's sort of coming in as a side effect of iron processing. But copper is not the only thing that's short. Here's copper, no inventory on it. Tin, no inventory on it. I think one of these is glass, probably the very top one, and I'm not sure what the one is above gold. But obviously I'm short a number of materials. This one is probably Invar, and Invar is bottlenecked by steel because I just don't have enough steel production. One thing I did change also was I wanted to get more iron production in, and I more particularly, I didn't necessarily want more iron production. I wanted more steel, which meant I wanted to use less iron in iron production. So I changed this to use the recipe that involves nickel and cobalt. And so I am now, my iron is only 1/3 iron. It's 2/3 nickel and cobalt. And so that saves me a lot of iron. It's definitely stretching the material on that. If you have been looking at the mini-map, then you may have noticed one other thing that I have been working on. I've expanded land quite a bit between episodes, and I am currently working on, it's sort of in the planning stages. I'm thinking about what I'm going to have to do with base 2.0, the big base that should get me all the way to the end game. So I'm sort of playing around with different sorts of things with rail setup. So I've made some rails, and I know that these are not going to be anything like intersections I'm actually going to use, but this may be, this three-way right here. In any case, I'm sort of planning it out and seeing what size square I need. I'm thinking about having a block-oriented base with two different sizes of areas, and this would be the small one. And just for scale, I've got some algae farms in here, so The small one might be about this size, and the large one will be significantly larger. And I'm hoping to have everything interconnected by rails. I need to see if I can get train stations like I want to fit in here on the edges. Maybe just one or two train stations serving this would be sufficient. I'm not going to run long trains, so there may be enough room, but I actually want to take and figure out how it's all going to fit before I put anything down. Because once I start getting this all planned out, it's going to be something that I have to live with for the rest of the game. So the last thing I want to do in this episode is I want to go ahead and set up my labs to be serviced by robots. I've got these blue and gray science packs that are being pushed out into this box, and I want to be able to get them to labs. And I don't want to set up belts because there are a whole bunch of different kinds of science packs that I'm going to have to deal with having all the belts go in there. You can do it by running them to one lab and then using inserters to sort of relay the packs between the labs. I'm not going to do it that way. I'm just going to set it up for robot servicing, and I don't think it's going to be very difficult. So let's go ahead and try to line up where... Let's go ahead and take up all of the inserters here. Let's just shut this all down. It's not doing the research that it started on right now anyway because it ran out of blue. And let me go ahead and pick up the labs. I'm going to need 4 requester chests, I think. Do I have enough for... How many labs do I have here? I have 12 labs, so I'm only going to need 3 for the current setup. But they do have to be the Angels big ones, so let's go ahead and make 3 of those. And I'm also going to need a provider chest. 2 of them. And what I want to do is I want to go ahead and line this up in line with all the rest of these. So I'm going to have an inserter, not an inserter, a loader here for sure, and I'm going to have another one here. And let me go ahead and put these down. And I'm going to filter these. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm not going to filter them that way. You can't filter loaders on input anyway. So let's take and use a splitter. And let's just filter the red one. Okay, and now if I connect up the belt, the red ones should go in one and the green one should go in the other. I don't want to fill these things because I just don't have enough resources to devote to that right now. So there we go. And we're getting that going. Let me go ahead and stuff what I've got in my inventory in there before it gets to where I can't. I now have the ability to pull all of the science pack out of provider chests. Let's go ahead and set up the lab arrangement. What I want to do is have a chest down there with 4 labs around it. Like that. And actually these big chests are kind of good for this because you can reach 4 of them this way. I think that we could maybe reach... Well, no, we don't even want to do that anyway. I wouldn't have room for inserters. So let's go ahead and put the inserters down. These are going to be right angle inserters, and they're going to pick up on the bottom. And on the other side, they're going to pick up from the top. So that will load those. Let's take and pick this up because this isn't quite how I wanted it, I don't think. I'd rather have it oriented the other way. So just make a blueprint of that and tear it down. I haven't built any construction robots yet, so I will have to put this down by hand or let my nanobots do it. I guess they will do it here. So let's go ahead and 1, 2, 3. Okay, so that sets all those up. Let's go ahead and set up the research packs to be requested here. We're going to want the red ones and the green ones and blue ones and the gray ones. And you know, we might as well just set them all up. So I got all those set up. I set it to 10 packs of each type here, and nothing is being delivered. And the reason nothing is being delivered right now is because I don't have a RoboPort in range. So I've stolen one out of one of these buildings, just the one that was doing the oil processing. And I'm going to go ahead and pop it down as soon as I get power strung to all these. Let's go ahead and make sure that we've got them all powered. Okay, so all of our labs are powered, and we just need to get them on the logistics network by popping down a RoboPort somewhere convenient, and I think right here will do, and we'll have power for the RoboPort. So we should start getting deliveries here. I am going to go ahead and put additional robots in here. I'm not sure where I put them. They're somewhere in my inventory here. So hard to find sometimes. Okay, so these are going to deliver research packs, and it's all going to be pretty automatic now for me, and so I don't have to manually load these things like I was doing, and I don't need to build any belts. I can plop down more of these units whenever I decide that I need some more research labs. These are very expensive to build. That is one of the things I did between episodes, but it took quite a while to gather all those materials. The last thing I want to mention at the end of the episode is a couple of corrections. One thing that I mentioned in the last episode, really there's just this one correction, and then I want to mention something else. One thing I mentioned in the last episode was that the second tier of chests for vanilla logistics systems required blue research. And I think that's true in vanilla. It's not true in this mod pack. It does require yellow research. And yellow research is much more of a problem than blue research. Obviously, blue research is only a problem right now because we have to sometimes wait on materials to come in. Otherwise, it's going very nicely. That said, we have enough of the right materials at this point to start doing more than blue research. There are no actual materials barriers keeping us from doing the two different shades of purple research. If we look at these research packs, there's an actual purple one, the burns out QL bioprocessor, and then there's this magenta one, the logistic science pack. And I don't think there are any real barriers to producing either one of these. They don't require any like new materials that we don't have access to. I think that one of them at least is going to require more petroleum, and so I don't have that going yet. But it's very realistic to do that. Now, between episodes, I am planning on finishing my petroleum build, and I'll probably have something to show you on that next time. And I'm going to continue working on what I need to do for base 2.0, which I'm going to start pretty soon. In terms of research, there is a specific research that I want to work toward that I think is critically important. I want to start working towards the synthesis gas research. Let me pull it up here. Synthesis gas is going to probably solve most of our petroleum problems because we'll be able to use the Angel's bioprocessing that produces the mineral oil and the fuel oil, and we'll be able to use those as feedstocks to produce most of the petroleum products we need. Maybe not all of them, but it will definitely help a lot. It's also a good way of producing solid fuel, so we can take and break down things that we have too much of, like base mineral oil, and produce useful products out of it, like solid fuel or naphtha or any of a number of other products. It's sort of the global conversion resource, I guess, for petroleum in Angels. That's going to be very helpful, so that's what I'm going to be working on research. Anyway, that does wrap it up for this episode. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.